Okay, welcome to the November 19th meeting of the Hamilton Planning Board. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Brian Stein, the chair. On our agenda tonight, we have a site plan review for 59 and 63 Willow Street that we will potentially vote to continue as requested by the applicant. We have an A&R request for 466 Highland Street. We may talk about master planning and housing production plan and board business and minutes. So we need to take a vote to continue the site plan review for 59 and 63 Willow Street. The applicant has requested that we continue this until our next meeting on December 4th.
Right.
So I'll entertain a motion for that.
Okay, we move that we continue the the site plan review hearing for 5963 Willow Street until December 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just as a footnote, I did want everybody to be aware that we have hired a company called the Engineering Collaborative to make the peer review for us. That focuses on both traffic planning, design, and on-site drainage. There are a lot of concerns regarding both of those issues. So, as you recall, the board was supportive of getting a consultant to do a peer review for that. They have all of the plans that I have, so they're reviewing that right now. They will be providing us with a report and a presentation on our next meeting, which is December 3rd.
Wow, quick turnaround.
Must have been thinking of something else on the 4th. All right. Okay. Peter?
Peter Britton, 466 Highland Street. I come here on behalf of the, Britton Family LLC, with the assistance of Charlie Weir of Meridian Associates, and asking for your review of a A&R. Planning board approval not required. Plan on
Curious, is this just different from that?
This is just the conservation restriction. It's a little shaded area.
Okay.
This is roughly a 6-acre piece that has frontage off of Highland Street, which we have officially developed or divided into 2 lots. There's perk tests that have been performed successfully on the 2 lots that are represented there. So it's a way in which we take a portion of our unrestricted land and in effect convey value to it officially by having an A&R.
Everything check out, Patrick?
I've reviewed it. They have frontage on Highland Street. The geometry of both of the lots are, actually all 3 lots are way above and beyond the minimum requirements. There's no reason to not approve them. I did want to make mention in the last 2 words of the ad on the agenda, I did call it as frontage onto Porter Lane. It's not on Porter Lane, it's Highland. So, begging your pardon.
We'll see what we can do about that.
Okay.
And that gravel drive, is that essentially your driveway?
Well, the gravel drive is into the compost facility. Essentially, it's a part of a pork chop lot that lies in the back.
Yep, okay.
Have any plans
there
for
a lot?
these?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any plans for these lots?
Not at the moment, no. This is just to, first step in order to convey value to that particular piece, which even though our chief concern is agricultural land and open space, this seems to be a piece that doesn't neatly fit into either of those categories, and be able to convey value on it without disturbing the other values that we pursue.
What's the traffic going into the facility that you operate? Is it a lot of trucks a day, or?
Well, it's periodic. I mean, if you were to measure it right now when we're taking in leaves in the fall, it's considerable, but it's nothing compared to what Pingree has every day.
Right, of course. But it wouldn't be a disadvantage for this lot?
No, and there are
Maintaining that big
and
buffer,
and
too,
there
yeah.
are, in fact, excellent sight lines. It's right at the top of the curve, or the higher part of Highland Street, and that, so you can see well in both directions.
Good.
Great. Any other comments? All right. I'll make the motion that we approve our plan for 466 Highland Street as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Very simple?
Yeah. no, just
Thank
need to
you.
sign 'em.
See you in 2 weeks.
For that, you had to pay Charlie to get here?
I'm sorry?
For that, you had to pay Charlie to get here? Oh, I see.
Gladly.
Is this the pen?
Name similar to that, and Professor Gordon was from that, I think,
I can pass
We need a couple more signed as well.
these.
One for the clerk and one for my files.
Do we have to use,
Oh, this is a regular. Oh, this is a regular.
he slipped off a train, lost his foot, my mother and grand.
Production line going.
Well, this is the special pen for writing on Mylars.
How many copies are we signing?
Just the two paper and the
Two
one.
copies, one for the clerk, one for our office as well.
I think we're good. We already have some copies going.
Is this coming with it?
Less than I signed yesterday afternoon.
Right, we've already got two paper going.
Don't need this one?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, we'll be out in 10 minutes.
The electronic copy, that's perfect. Great, thank you.
Patrick, do these need to be dated? Dated? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it, though?
19th.
Give,
No, it's, I made a mistake, it's the 3rd, Tuesday the 3rd. Yeah. Yeah.
You bet.
Thanks, Peter.
There's 2 of them here,
Great.
but they're not going to be signed at all.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes a difference.
That's the offices.
All right, moving on to master planning and housing production plan. As I think you all know, we met last night with the selectmen, and, I mean, I guess we can technically vote on that tonight if we wanted to, and vote separately as we talked about last night, unless we have more edits, but, I mean, do we just vote on it as we've amended it, or do we want to wait until it's finalized?
I would leave that up to the board.
Yeah.
I've provided these comments to the consultants for some time, and I haven't seen any text changes, so it might be worthwhile to hold off
Yeah.
and vote when we
Kinda
get the
where I was-
product that
Yeah.
we expect.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I agree.
And you said
Yeah.
they'd have everything in a couple weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Patrick, Long Meadow, that was removed at the request of just, I can't think of.
Russ Tanzer.
Russ Tanzer. Did the whole Hamilton Affordable Trust vote on that, or was it just his request?
That was his request.
Can we override that? Is it too late to override that?
I think you have the
I
ability.
want to override it.
You know, and that property was discussed at length by many of the groups, you know, during the discussions that we had as a,
And it was voted
Well,
on
it was
by
kind
town
of,
meeting.
yeah, it had just been in play, right, not too long before that, so
Right.
that's probably why. But,
Or am I beating a dead horse?
I mean,
You're beating a dead horse.
you may be beating a
Oh,
dead
thanks.
horse, but it's not, although it's not that property isn't, potentially couldn't be in play for, well,
So could any.
another
oth-
developer,
Yeah,
let's say.
so could any other property.
Well, I know.
So it's like,
I think when you take the proverbial step back, a developer has the ability to lock up virtually any property
Right.
and utilize it based on zoning or pursue a 40B wherever they choose. That's, you know, workable regardless of what we list or don't list.
Right.
Yeah. One of the reasons, if I
That's green.
reverse what I was gonna say, or go the other way, was that this guy Mueller, or whatever his name is, had been threatening to sell it to a developer and put a lot of stuff in, and never carried through, and there's, at least in my impression, never been anything that he's gonna do. So it leads me to think, in reality, he has no real interest in selling it, because given the length of time, he would have sold it by now. So I
Yeah,
don't,
and I
you know.
mean, and, you know, unless they're town-owned parcels, is there any logic in us, or anyone putting this together to pick properties, right? It's.
right. It's like,
If it's privately owned, I don't think it should be in there.
Right. I tend to agree.
I mean, if I'm looking at that property as whatever, and I do a search and find it on the
Assessor's database.
assessor's
Yeah.
database or anybody's database, and I see that it's on there, I'm gonna be disenfranchised by it, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, was that, I can't remember, was that the only other parcel that was mentioned that was privately owned? No. Essex Street.
Gordon, Essex Street, as well as the Gordon Conwell property. Yeah.
Gordon Conwell is still a valid, you know, Form A property that has a
Right.
certain amount of units
That's
by
true.
right,
Right.
and albeit at a horribly difficult site in terms of buildability.
Right.
You're talking about the hillside property,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about the entire property.
Well,
Entire property?
well, he's talking about the parcel that was.
The Browns Hill supposed property,
The 20 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
Right off Bridge, yeah.
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 Well, the Board of Select, well, they haven't officially indicated this, but I know the several members of the board, as well as the Finance Committee, is interested in looking at zoning both the Winthrop site and Gordon Conwell.
Speak up, Rick, I can't
as
hear you.
commercial. There's a strong interest by the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee to zone Winthrop site and Gordon Theological Seminary as commercial, with a commercial overlay.
That's crazy.
Well, that's in advance of some potential change.
That would preclude housing then.
No, it wouldn't.
Is housing allowed under the COD?
Yeah.
Town there is.
I'm not
I
sure
don't
that
know.
it is. Most
I don't
zoning
know.
ordinances do not allow residential use in industrial areas.
Yeah, I forget if, I don't think the COD had it.
Well, if it's a commercial, then you can do mixed use.
Well, it depends on how you zoned it.
Right.
I mean, like the dump, it has a commercial overlay district on it. That's the only.
Well, no, it specifies what is allowed there.
Right, I know.
Right.
I know.
That's by
You could come up
that's a
with a new-
special permit.
Right, right. Yeah, so you'd have to zone it B, business, right?
Right.
Who on the Board of Selectmen is proposing this?
Nobody's proposing it
Oh, I
as
thought
of
you
yet,
said that.
but Darcy is, Dale and Dave Wanger are interested in pursuing that for both Winthrop and potentially for Gordon Conwell. It's really in advance.
Right.
At Winthrop, it would be 10 years from today if the decision was made to tear down that school. And then at Gordon Conwell, there's no proposal to do anything with that property. It's really to provide a set of options should that property or part of that property become commercially available.
I'm on the task force with the town manager, which is negotiating with that Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and they're not talking about it being commercially available or anything like that.
No, but if you read the Salem News last week, you would have seen that they have been put on notice by the,
I did read that, yeah.
okay.
No, I
so-
didn't see it. Go ahead, keep saying.
Well, they've been put on notice by the New England College Accreditation Association.
Right.
Because they've been running a deficit for, the last reporting years was 216, 217. And part of the hypersensitivity to the Accreditation Association is now giving everybody fair warning of colleges that are experiencing financial difficulties.
What I understand is that it's immigration problems, because they have a lot of foreign students that come from Korea and from Japan and so forth.
A lot from Africa too.
Pardon me?
Africa as well.
Africa as well. Well, and as long as Trump is in office and has these weird immigration things, there's constraints and the students can't get there.
I mean, it's not just that.
It's not
It's
just
not
that, though.
It's
I
a
mean,
small
it's
piece,
all
but
small
it's-
colleges.
A lot of small colleges are having
All small
issues.
colleges are struggling because of the decline in the student
Well,
population.
this is what they're saying anyway.
No, I get what they're saying, but to say it's just immigration would be, I think, disingenuous.
Well, given the
what the
number of
president said.
years that you have said they've
Well, I
had
understand.
a.
What would you expect the president to say? We're in financial trouble and we need help.
Right.
That wouldn't be good optics in
No one's
terms
going to
of.
small colleges anymore, so.
Right.
Well, given that you
Especially
said that the
specialty colleges.
deficiency was from 16 and 17, that's a fair bit before all of Trump's policies really went into effect. So you gotta think, this was happening, and it would have to build up to that point.
No, it was happening
Way
before
before
that, so.
Oh, yeah, it was happening.
So it's a trend with all small colleges. I mean, that's the economic and demographic reality. It is what it is, and I'm sure that's why they put the 20 acres up for sale, because they needed an infusion of cash.
They believe that much of the reason has to do with the fact that so much of education now is online learning rather than bricks and mortar campus. So many people are now becoming educated, particularly those later in life, are doing it online.
Well, that makes sense. And then, on the other hand, given along with that, if you have all these people coming from foreign countries, having to relocate for a period of time, then relocate back, it could make a lot of sense to stay where you are and do it online.
Well, and Peter, it's borne out by the fact that they have 2 dorms that are looking to potentially.
Well, that's why we're talking to them about
But I
leasing.
mean, that should be to you.
That may give them a shot in the arm.
Right, but that would be an indication of the trouble they're having filling the facilities that they have.
Well, that's why we're saying, let's make it a cooperative agreement.
Right, no, I'm just saying, that's part of the problem, is they can't fill their facilities that they have.
Right, yeah.
Which is an opportunity for us. So we're just looking at long-term potential opportunities.
Kind of interesting to think about it, because you could also do an estate overlay zoning on it. It's very pretty land, it's got a lot of views.
Yep.
You know, you could imagine condos in some of the buildings and other,
Could
you know.
be,
stuff.
could
And
be
it might
greater,
actually be
could be,
higher value that way than
And
commercial,
commercializing.
industrial, you know.
well, I don't
whatever
think
with
anybody's,
COD.
I don't think anybody's thinking industrial.
No.
You know, but.
Well, that's what the COD does, you do,
Well, that, well,
COD.
right, that's not what he meant, though.
Offices and
He wasn't
that's-
talking about
that's just a
COD. He
mistake.
wasn't talking about COD, I don't think.
So, in any case, there's discussion to be had about that at some point.
Okay.
Which really won't be a point that comes about until the seminary says definitively, we're ready to do something.
No, you don't have to,
True.
no, you don't.
You want to change the bylaw before.
Yeah, you can
say
change it
that's
before
true.
that, right? I mean, the use they can keep their use.
Yeah,
You
It
don't,
is for as long as they want, but.
right,
I understand what you're saying.
right. It's just an option.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to think about what it's best suited for.
Right, I mean, it's almost like what we did with the estate overlay district, right, was to give those people an option other than just single family, right? So it's very similar, it's just,
Right.
okay.
Great minds.
Sure.
One of the big reasons why we did the master plan is that we wanted, as an outcome of it, was to help guide us toward amendments that we would pursue relative to the zoning bylaw. I have combined some of them from the report. I don't think I have all of them, but happy to just mention quickly what they are if you
Yeah,
want.
and then, we'll need to decide what we want to pick off, next year.
Yeah. They have recommended that we simplify the open space farm protection district. They've also recommended in that same zoning that we allow wetlands to be part of the open space requirement. They've also recommended a density bonus within various districts, as well as in the inclusionary housing bylaw. They've talked about and recommended a revision of the estate overlay district. Members will remember, wasn't that long ago that we made a valiant effort to try to do that. Maybe we'll do it again. We'll talk our way through it, I suppose. There was another type of zoning that they were recommending called the natural resource zoning. I don't have a copy of that, so I asked them to send us a copy of it so we have it. I assume that that's something like cluster housing that deals with properties that have a great deal of wetlands, habitat, other natural resources that are real site amenities. I'm assuming that. I could be wrong, but as soon as I get it, I'll send it out to you. They've also talked about we should consider amending R1A, R1B, B as well to allow for two-family and townhouses by special permit. So that was as far as I got, but including that half a dozen, there's a fair amount of work that'd have to go into it. I don't know what the board's prerogative is or appetite is to go after individual ones. Maybe we'd want to divide it up, or I'll leave that to
Well, and
the board members.
to figure out, what the appetite would be at next fall town meeting, how many are reasonable for people to really.
Let's hope there is not a fall town meeting, because given the last fall town meeting, I think the concern is, why bother when you can only get 75 people? And it's only happened because people who were there were calling their friends and neighbors and saying, please show up.
Well, do it later in the year so that it's, more like the end of November or beginning of December, people will come.
It's even worse.
There's no real need to
Well, it
have
was a great fall weekend.
there's
that's
no
the thing.
real need to have a fall town meeting. So,
Well,
unless there is some super problem, like, financial problem, it's really housekeeping. So it's like.
yeah, but even our housekeeping takes 3 hours.
No, I understand, but I'm going, what we're seeing is fewer and fewer people are showing up
Because,
unless there's some hot burning issue.
Too early.
well, that's part, you're right, that is part of it. I mean, I've seen, like, Manchester has theirs tonight or something, but it's pretty late in the season. But, the fact that it takes 3+ hours to get through mundane things is ridiculous. On both, it's been that way on both town meetings at times, or longer. That's why people don't come. A huge reason. So, and I'm not putting fault on any of us or any, but it's
Right,
just the way it is. But if we tried to pick off 6 zoning bylaws in one meeting, that's not.
No, we would never do that.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying, is we just need to, especially if we're gonna make it part of Springtown meeting.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's a good idea to take a zoning bylaw to a fall town meeting when you've got maybe 1% of the voting population there. It's like, it's not a good idea.
Let's put up a really controversial bylaw, and then we'll get a lot of people there.
Okay, so it'll be like when we were proposing the original commercial overlay district, and, the people were thinking, Walmart coming to Hamilton, so.
Right. Well, but one of the issues is that the selectmen have their policy about zoning bylaws and getting them in at a certain date and not doing them at Springtown meeting,
Right.
so
Well, I think,
is that,
I'm not sure how hard and fast that is, but I will check on it, and I'll report back to the board, because we need to have a better ability to get people focused on doing some important things for the
well,
town.
that, and, if we try to do this for Springtown meeting, that'd be pretty quick. I mean, unless it
oh,
was just,
I'm
or
not
just some
suggesting.
simple stuff, some
Oh, no,
simple
no,
changes,
no,
okay.
I'm not suggesting we do it for Springtown meeting.
I mean, you could do a couple relatively simple things. I think you could do OSFPD, and it wouldn't be that bad.
That may be possible. That's my preference, is we start with ones we already have and see if we can
Absolutely.
enhance their attractiveness to the to landowners to use as a way to preserve open space and, you know, provide some additional housing options for the town, which is, it was, the original cluster housing bylaw was designed to preserve open space.
I mean, the other one I would like to do, I think, is what you mentioned last, the conversion to two-family, and give people that option that, you know, again, with a set of parameters. But there's a lot of that, there used to be, or there still is some of that in town. You wouldn't even know it in a lot of cases that the house is a two-family. But they've become fewer and fewer, I think, over time.
Yeah.
As people convert them back to singles. But there was a provision, I don't know if it's still there, I have to look, that if you have a house that's older than, I forget what the date is.
Yeah.
That you can convert it to a
was-
two-family if you
That
have
was
the, if you have the land area.
for big estates at
Yeah,
one time.
well, if you have, I think it was a 20,000 square foot land area, or maybe it was more, but
This in the bylaws you're talking about?
there used to be, I don't know if it still is, I have to look.
Where do you think it is?
I don't remember, but, there used to be something about being able to convert to a two-family if you had the land and whatever, but.
Ah, yes.
Doesn't the estate overlay allow conversion of the
Boardman
estate?
Lane, for example, there was a
main
big
house?
estate there, and that became a two-family house.
I think it had, the house, I think, had to be at least 4,000 square feet.
Right, it was, that is correct.
Right.
That
It
is
had to
correct.
be
Yeah, it was
on.
a big house, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember somebody calling me a couple of years ago, and their house was like 3,800 square feet, and I said, can't do it.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot about that, that size piece.
And I forget where that is. Well, also, I want to, and, you know, both Darcy and David expressed interest in pursuing this commercial. I said, that's fine, but I'd like to see the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen drive that discussion. But we ought to just be aware that it's there.
The current estate bylaw allows for expanded residential
Yeah.
use in the main house,
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
so that would allow for conversion.
Well, no, right, it does, but the estate has to be of a certain age and a certain land size, and there's only, what, 20 of those, I think? So it's not like.
More, less than that now.
No, it was meant for estates, not for every house.
Correct,
really.
correct.
Brian, you're thinking of the great estate, the
No.
estate overlay
No,
district?
I'm not.
No,
You're not?
no.
Something completely different.
No, it's, it's
forget
in,
what it was
it's in there, but don't ask me where.
Yeah.
So, do we want to try
We don't have to
the
decide
open
tonight,
space and
but
farmland preservation?
I think that's an obvious one.
It's an easy one, and it really
Never
just,
been used.
and it's.
Right.
It's something that, with some, I can think about three parts, one is that the density is clearly one of them, because it's just not attractive to anybody, and we saw that with,
Yep.
Tom Ford and the Esdale property. You know, we were really pushing him to look at that rather than chewing up 14 acres with 14 single-family homes, but he just said it doesn't make economic sense didn't make economic sense for him, so, and the
Right,
other
and
is, it's awfully, you know, they have to do a yield plan, and it's very
Yeah.
cumbersome.
Very drawn, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it is.
It ought to be really straightforward and just say, hey, if you want to do cluster housing, and if you have the appropriate size lot, and it meets the basic zoning requirements, here's what you can do with it.
Well, and the other thing that came out of Tom's proposal for Esdale property, at one point, he wanted to do multiple things, multiple
Right.
different things on that lot.
Right.
One was cluster, one was maybe a little bit of senior, you know, I forget what the other, there might have been even something else, but I want to find a way for the ability to do something like that, right? That makes
Flexibility.
sense.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
Say it again?
Smaller size lots.
It's not just, you know, one bylaw for one use, like senior housing, right? It's a little bit of a flexible bylaw that maybe you have two or three different things.
Bobrowski was pushing us to pursue what he called a flexible housing bylaw that Wenham, in fact, did approve. Many others did as well. I'll see if I can get that and
Yeah.
distribute it.
So can we agree to start with OSFPD?
Yeah, get rid of it.
Well, then we revamp it.
Yeah, revamp it for
Let's
sure.
start with the
It just
easy
never
one.
had, it was,
Don't-
it was
don't
never.
have a two-step yield plan and
No.
then something
No,
else.
no, no.
Just
Yeah.
come in with your proposal.
The idea of the whole thing is fine, I think, right? I think people would agree on the whole purpose of it, the idea. It's just the implementation was flawed.
So, maybe Patrick, you can send out the existing OSFPD to all
Sure.
board members, just so they can read it, understand what it is.
Sure.
And our next meeting is gonna be taken up with Willow Street.
With
Then
what?
we're into-
Willow.
Whole street, yeah.
Then we're into Christmas. So really, we ought to be probably trying to schedule something January.
Speaking of Willow Street, I detected a little bit of hostility at the meeting when people were here. Patrick, do you have any reading on what that part of town thinks of this project?
I think there's concern over the unknown. I think there's a lot of concern about traffic, a lot of concern about drainage.
Parking and traffic.
Yeah, parking as well. But, you know,
It is a lot denser than anything else.
it is denser than anything else, but
By
it,
several
it
orders of
follows, seems to follow what our zoning allows.
Right. So I'll make a
So-
proposal sometime this winter that we can vote on, that we change that 2 or more units to something dealing with FAR, or square feet of floor area. So you're allowed to have the same amount of residential floor area as is commercial underneath, some reasonable limit, but not just 2 or more units. I'm not sure we'll all agree on it, but I'm gonna draft it and we'll see.
Got to start somewhere.
Gotta start somewhere.
Anything else?
No, I'll vote for minutes.
Well, yeah, we have 2 minutes, but. Do you have anything else on master plan or anything? We're good there?
Just a quick word about the commercial overlay district. I have been asking a environmental consultant to give us an understanding of what kind of budget number we need to be asking for to evaluate that district. As to, yes. Yeah, the commercial overlay district, which includes the landfill. It's all solar, array now. There's one mound on the property that hasn't been used, but then the majority of the rest of the land, as I review it and look at it and have been out there, a small portion is used for a gun club. The gun club has been there for many, many years. They have gotten the soil pretty heavily laden with lead to the point where it's virtually unworkable. The majority of the site, however, is wet, and you marry that part with what's unbuildable and what has the state's natural habitat overlay area, which is purple-toed salamanders, I think. It leaves very little. However, there are a lot of folks who believe that there's land out there to be used, so we're going to run this to ground. We're going to find out actually what is there that's workable.
When you go in the gate, there's the road that goes to the left and it goes down around to the gun club. Where's the land that is actually theoretically usable? I mean, if you go straight, you're gonna go on that mound where the array is, the solar panel array. where do you go to see land that would be open and usable?
In my opinion, the land that's being used by the gun club is the only upland portion that's workable
And then that's not workable because of all the lead.
because of that.
Right. And there's a tiny corner if you go down
Does
the
lead
road.
make it unworkable for industrial use? Industrial uses have gone on some pretty, sketchy, filled over toxic sites, all sorts of stuff.
How big is that area? It's not that big.
It's not really that big.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd be
There's a tiny,
hard pressed
if-
to build a parking lot.
If you go down the road just to the left, just beyond where all the brush piles and rocks and stuff are, there's a tiny area there that is open, but it's
Yeah.
too small to do anything with.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so you're gonna commission a civil engineer to do a site analysis and come back with a definitive map of the area?
More likely, an environmental scientist who has mapping ability, so they can give us an understanding of, what's protected, what's wetlands, what's in the DEP permit, as far as what was kept and has to remain that way based on that agreement we have with the state, and basically what remains.
But are they gonna go out there and flag all the wetlands and all
Yes.
that? Okay, all right.
Yeah. Where are the wetlands, Patrick?
Oh.
All over.
Yeah, they're all over, literally.
Okay, but I mean, I've never gone off the road, so I don't know how far you can walk or,
Surrounded by it.
huh?
It's surrounded by
Basically
wetlands.
surrounded by it.
Surround, yeah, okay, I'll go along with that, yeah.
Yeah.
So when do you expect that to be done,
Well, here's the
Rob?
process that we have to go through. You have to ask for budget approval. That budget's being formulated beginning in December. January, it gets discussed by the selectmen, also by the finance committee, before it becomes part of the formulated budget that then goes to town meeting in April. So,
You couldn't spend it until after July.
correct.
Okay. So it'll be late summer.
Before we'd have
or
anything.
Fall,
Yeah.
early fall before you have the answer.
Yeah.
But you can tell the voters that we're gonna get our money back by doing this study, because there will be 5 house lots or something of the sort.
I would be
think so.
very surprised at that.
When we were looking for affordable housing sites, there were several things over, that were, after you go across the solar array, I don't know if they're not frontage on the road, so you have to
Right.
get through the solar array, but I don't know. But there was like 5 acres or so in that area.
Yeah, if, there's a fair amount of land that's in slope. There's sort of a plateau.
Yeah.
Upon which you've got these 2 big mounds where the landfill was, and then from that plateau it breaks downward. You've got more slope there by far than you have on Gordon Conwell. That, in my opinion's not buildable at all. And then, at the bottom of those slopes, you've got, all kinds of wetland.
So by slope, you mean
The
steep or?
Manchester.
Oh, very steep. Yeah,
Pardon?
very steep.
Very steep,
Yeah.
okay.
So the whole point is this study will determine if there's anything that's worth building.
I mean, do we know what kind of money they're talking about?
Probably 10K.
How many acres is it?
Short money.
Yeah, it is short money to understand what we have.
Sure, I agree.
Yes and no.
My biggest job is to make sure the consultant understands everything that needs to be looked at. Because a lot of times they focus on what they like to do rather than, dealing with lead and dealing with the things like that, are problematic to work with.
Could you bring us a mapping of the landfill itself, the whole property,
did,
so that
sure.
we see
He did
the
already.
difference between the new solar area and then the rest? Because
You bet.
I think we could all visualize it a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did a schematic for us at one point. I don't know if
Yeah,
it actually had, I don't know if it had where the new solar array was exactly, but
Yeah.
But-
I did hand that out probably 3 months or so ago, but I'll get it back and
Okay, great.
get it to you.
yeah, because that was all just done using GIS layers,
Right.
right?
Right.
Which, I know this other piece and study will be a little more accurate, but I think, typically for general planning purposes, the GIS layers you're pretty close for the most part. right?
It's what the
Once-
state uses.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, that's my only, my only saying, 10,000 isn't a lot of money in the scheme of things, but when you've already got a tool that
Yeah.
is reasonable for planning purposes,
But I think it needs to be more accurate than that.
Yeah.
And, actually walking out and mapping the area and then.
I get
Right.
that.
This is more a political
No, I know.
exercise, so that for once and for all, we have a definitive, real-world, site-verified, a map of what, if any, is buildable or not
Yeah.
buildable, or landlocked or not, so that we can either put this to bed or explore other options.
Or have a new Oklahoma out there that we can have a land rush.
Patrick?
So we have
is all of
tiny
that
6-inch.
land within the fenced-in area?
Pardon me?
No.
Is all of it? It is not? Okay.
All right,
So
minutes?
as I look through the estate overlay district, a lot of potential there. You refine that.
There is.
It could be, you could make the theological seminary quite attractive, if you like. The current version isn't quite right, but
Well, yeah, because we tried to change it, was it a year
3
ago or
years.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
To make it more workable, and not have the part A, the part B, or, step one, step two, and that's why it's not workable right now.
and what happened at that point?
It got shut down, it got turned down.
Shut down the town.
There was,
We
there
didn't
was,
go to town meeting,
Yeah, we
though.
did.
there was
did.
resistance, or
Remember that.
fear that it would be rampant. They wanted sort of this like shortstop, just do this little piece and then come back and do it again. But it's sort of like OSFPD. You're making it arbitrarily uneconomic to do. So it really needs, and it would be great if you looked at it and led the charge to make it more workable.
I mean, almost any other mixed use of some sort that you put on that hill will have a very beneficial fiscal impact for the town. Right?
Yeah,
That's
or on
from
any
non-tax
of
paying to
these, or
tax
on any
paying.
of these, yeah.
Right, the whole.
And honestly.
70 children into the school to,
Right.
but at least they'll be taxpayers.
That's the
Right.
whole point, is to have a set of tools that are applicable, whether it's the Great Estates would work there, or OSFPD, or whatever, so that you're directing the kind of development you want,
Control,
and
right.
rather than just saying, well, it's single-family homes.
Right. And I think the other piece to the estate overlay district is, there had to be a commercial piece to it, which, to me anymore, why even, it could be an option, but why even have that as a.
Why make it a requirement?
Right, exactly.
You can make it an option.
Sure. Just make it residential, right? Condos, apartments, whatever, but I think, because the commercial piece is what I think threw off a lot of people.
Yeah.
That are in a big estate and whatever
Well, they-
part of
right,
town.
because they thought, oh, it's gonna be a commercial
Right.
laundry, or, God knows what they were thinking.
Right.
Factories.
And of course, the initial thought was like, oh, it could be an inn, it could be a spa, it could be,
New England Biolabs.
Well, and that's what they didn't.
That's what people were scared
That's
of.
what they were scared of that?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Oh, yeah. Oh, like the neighbors, right, to any of these properties were scared of that due to traffic and whatnot, so, and the size of it.
Well, there, pretty much anything
Be surprised.
is gonna
It's
be
pretty
an
much-
impact on.
Pretty much anything we
narrowing
propose,
Traffic
there's a
to
fear
to the
factor.
neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 town meetings to pass the over age 55.
What would the neighbors have us do with the property?
Leave
I
it
mean,
like
if
it
it's
is.
not viable as
Leave it
a-
as is.
as a-
Leave it as it is.
No, but it's not viable. What would they,
Oh.
what would they? what would
Bill.
they
But
have
then you
us
can't convince them of that.
Bill, don't ask logical questions.
But no,
But
no.
That's a, no,
Gordon
that's a
Conwell
fine,
already
that's a
has a
fine.
traffic-
Gordon Conwell wasn't even in the discussion on
Right,
the state
exactly.
overlay district, so we're talking about private estates.
But now we're talking
But
about.
No, I know,
Now we're
I
talking about
understand, I understand.
And
What would
they
they-
already
But
have
we're telling you
traffic
why,
patterns.
we're telling you
I
why
bet
it
you
didn't
there are
pass.
a lot of ideas people would have for more productive use of that land than what's there now.
No, I agree, so.
That one's a little bit
just-
different.
Just understand, anytime you introduce the idea of change anywhere, you're gonna run into,
That's always true.
and especially when you're talking great estates, because people see it as a valuable asset and it's been protected and open space, and we've benefited from the largesse of, those kinds of properties for God knows how many years, then all of a sudden, the neighbors who, bought and go, wow, we're really benefiting from all this open space and viewscapes and everything, and then, what? You're gonna put in more housing and commercial?
Commercial, right.
The problem with all these estates is
When
nobody get
people-
benefits from them. No, because, or the majority of the people in town don't benefit from them because you don't know where they are, you can't see them, and they want to keep it private for the very few, and it's just a waste of space.
Well, anyway, it's definitely worth exploring.
And the people, Peter, you've been conversing with Gordon Conwell?
To some extent, yeah, because we're.
Is there any inkling of any thought that they might abandon?
Not yet,
Or selling?
no,
See, if
There's
we
none-
were very flexible in zoning, they could sell it
yeah.
for much more than, if we're very inflexible in zoning.
Right.
Might
Right.
help,
They haven't
helps them
gotten to
move
that
on,
point.
so to speak.
Flexibility is a problem in this area.
We could include a payment of all the deferred payments for the last
Yeah.
20 years as part of the sale process.
Right.
No, but I'm sure the finance committee would love to get rid of that liability, obviously.
That sounds like a quid pro quo.
But anyway, lots of opportunity.
Okay.
So, shall we move on? So it sounds like we've got OSFPD as a first step in the new year.
Yeah, and I think, maybe at the next meeting after Willow Street, we can discuss anything else, any other options, now that we have a list. All right, so minutes from November 15th.
Just one problem, there's only one N in my name, in the third line.
Also, it has the wrong date. It should have been for November the 5th, not the 15th.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
Can we accept it for all other reasons?
And, well, you and I recused ourselves from the Willow Street part of this, so we can,
I have no comment.
well, yeah, I mean, there are other things in here, but,
No, I read them and I don't have any comment.
okay. No, I know, but should we even vote on them, given that we were
Yeah.
Where was your name misspelled, Dan?
Like the third
third line?
right in the beginning.
Oh.
They just spelled it with one M.
No,
No, they
With
spelled with
two
two N's, DANN. HAMM.
Dutch version.
Yeah.
So, shall I move that we accept the minutes?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain from it. All right, that was it. Anything else from anyone? Dates? No?
Motion to close the meeting?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Right.
I always ask, you know.